Good morning, everyone. And the first item of business this morning is general questions. And in order to get as many people in as possible, if we could have succinct questions and answers, that would be helpful. Question 1, Stuart McMillan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what recent assistance it has provided to creative industries across the country.
Secretary Fiona Hislop.
The Scottish Government, through its public agencies, provides a range of support for the creative industries. Creative Scotland, Scottish Enterprise, Highlands and Isles Enterprise, Skills Development Scotland and the Scottish Funding Council, together with COSLA, belong to the Scottish Creative Industries Partnership. Local authorities have a crucial role to play, and I was glad to discuss assistance for creative industries with them only yesterday at a meeting with the COSLA Sports, Art and Culture Working Group. Most recently, the delivery group that I have established across the public sector agencies is working with potential investors on developing proposals for film and television production facilities, and last month Rockstar North, the internationally recognised video game development studio, was awarded a research and development grant of just over £1 million.
Stuart McMillan.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that reply. And with the success of Waterloo Road being filmed in Greenock and Rig Arts releasing their latest film, Dying Lights, featuring young people who are unemployed and who now are being given training and experience in the media industry, does the Cabinet Secretary agree with me that the media industry in Inverclyde is thriving and has even greater potential to provide more job opportunities, boost the economy, boost the tourism economy, and highlights the talent that exists within the Inverclyde area? And will she agree to meet up with representatives from Rig Arts to discuss how they can actually assist the Scottish Government work towards a greater level of social inclusion?
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, clearly the media industry in Inverclyde is thriving, and of course the new tax relief for high-end television looks set to create new opportunities, and of course the type of training that the member describes of Rig Arts provides an opportunity to tackle social inclusion, as well as providing training and skills, and I think it's a very practical example of how we can help young people in particular take that forward, and I'd be very interested to find out firsthand what Rig Arts have been doing.
Duncan McNeill, briefly, please.
The creative industries are indeed, Presiding Officer, an opportunity for Scotland and indeed Inverclyde, and we have made some real progress there. Can the Minister give us some clarification? Scotland's film studio will not simply focus on Glasgow, and can she clarify that Inverclyde will have an opportunity for bidding for the location of Scotland's new film studio being considered by the Scottish Government and its agencies?
Cabinet Secretary.
Clearly, developments will involve discussions with private businesses, and therefore on grounds of commercial confidentiality, I think it's difficult for me to say much further. However, what we do want to see is a sustainable, thriving film industry that serves all of Scotland, and I think looking at the whole infrastructure, not just in Glasgow but across Scotland, including Inverclyde, is something that we need to see on whether it's facilities, whether it's skills, whether it's training, and it's that holistic view that I've been discussing even only this week with filmmakers and producers as part of the Edinburgh International Film Festival's meetings and discussions that have been taking place in the last week.
Thank you. Question 2, Ken McIntosh.
To ask the Scottish Government how much Amazon has received in regional selective assistance grants in the last year.
Cabinet Secretary John Swinney.
Presiding Officer, for the period 2012-13, Amazon has received regional selective assistance grants totalling £593,410.19.
Ken McIntosh.
It's helpful that the Finance Secretary has finally confirmed a figure to Parliament, but perhaps the Chamber is unaware that Scottish Enterprise has been sending cheques on a monthly basis of £143,000 in December 2011, £215,000 in February 2012, £213,000 in March 2012. Given what we now know about Amazon, Presiding Officer, is there anyone in this country, let alone in this chamber, who believes that we should be handing over hard-earned Scottish taxpayers' money to this bunch of tax dodgers? Can I ask the Cabinet Secretary whether he will not stop this because he can't stop these payments, or he won't stop these payments?
Cabinet Secretary.
I think what Mr McIntosh fails to take account of in his question is two things. One is the fact that the government of which he was a supporter made contributions under regional selective assistance to Amazon, indeed to support the facility which resides in Mr McNeill's constituency, of which we heard just a moment ago in Gourock. The second point that Mr McIntosh ignores is the substantial economic footprint that is established by Amazon in Scotland and the employment that that creates for hundreds and hundreds of people in the west of Scotland, in Fife, in Edinburgh. Now, the issue of the tax payments by Amazon is a matter for the United Kingdom Government to properly ensure that they take steps to ensure that tax that is due is collected from companies like Amazon. And I'm certainly very happy to be held to account for corporate tax if this Parliament has those responsibilities. And of course that will only be a matter of time before I will be held to account for these issues, and I look forward to the day when I've got to do so.
Many thanks. Supplementary from Alison Johnson.
Thank you. Earlier this year, KPMG were awarded £1.7 million of RSA grant to move what's been dubbed a Centre for Excellence in Tax Avoidance to Glasgow. Is it the Government's plans to support companies that avoid tax and the audit firms that help them do so?
Cabinet Secretary.
I'm not sure if Alison Johnson was present, I'm sure she was, for the Land and Buildings Transaction Bill proceedings on Tuesday. The first tax bill that this Parliament has dealt with in 308 years. And what I made clear in that debate was the determination of the Government to get off on the right footing in undertaking the first tax legislation for which we have legislative responsibility, that we apply the highest standards to tax payment, take the highest action against tax avoidance, and those characteristics are implicit in the legislation that we've taken forward, and they will be implicit in the tax management bill that I introduced to Parliament later on this year, and which Parliament will consider in its next session.
Many thanks. Question 3, James Dornan.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on its strategy for measuring well-being in light of the publication of Shifting the Dial in Scotland by the Carnegie UK Trust.
Cabinet Secretary John Swinney.
Presiding Officer, our approach to national well-being is to start from a broad vision of the Scotland we want to see, set out in the Government's purpose and national outcomes, supported by a dashboard of indicators in the Scotland Performs website to measure progress towards these goals. I have recently hosted 2 very positive and constructive roundtable discussions with members from across this chamber and key third sector organisations, including the Carnegie UK Trust. These discussions have established a consensus and identified several areas for development. This will ensure that Scotland remains, in the words of the Carnegie Trust, an international leader in wellbeing measurement.
James Dornan.
Thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. This report supports Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz's comments where he commends the several efforts that are being made to develop better measures of performance by the Scottish Government, and notes that Scotland is a world leader in having well-being as a policy consideration. Does he agree with me that it would be better if all policy decisions that affect Scotland had the well-being of our citizens at heart, and that the best way to ensure this is the case is to take decisions out of the hand of Westminster and vote yes in 447 days?
Secretary.
Well, I think that's a very helpful reminder, if I needed any reminder from Mr Dornan of the, what lies ahead in the next 447 days. But yes, I agree with that. I think the Scotland Performs initiative that the Government took in 2007 has now become a very established part of the policy framework in Scotland. I think it provides a broad assessment of the progress we're making in achieving progress in Scotland. There are areas for reform, and of course I'm discussing those with other members in Parliament and the wider community to make sure we take those decisions wisely.
Patrick Harvey, briefly, please.
Thank you. I commend the Government for the steps that it has taken, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to take part in the round-table discussions the Cabinet Secretary mentions. But I'm still a little bit unclear about the status of well-being in the Government's mind compared with other indicators. Does the Cabinet Secretary share the view of GDP that its central flaw is that it counts everything that's positive in our lives and everything that's negative in our lives, and counts them all in the same way? Shouldn't well-being be at a higher status than GDP?
Cabinet Secretary.
I think what the purpose of the National Performance Framework is to give a balanced and rounded assessment of the areas where progress is required to be made to create a more sustainable, cohesive and prosperous society. And the efforts that I'm undertaking as part of the roundtable discussions are to try to ensure that that view is deeply embedded in the political consensus within Scotland and deeply embedded in the consensus outside of Parliament. I'm grateful to Mr Harvey and to colleagues for the participation they have given to this exercise. I think we're making progress. The last round table discussion even elicited a positive tweet from Mr McIntosh, which I welcomed enormously. So it shows that some progress can be made on these questions, but I do think it represents an important way forward, and it will be founded very much on the dialogue we have with organisations like Carnegie.
Many thanks. Question 4, Margaret McDougall.
To ask the Scottish Government what recent discussions it has held with stakeholders regarding improving the transport links between West Scotland and the rest of the country. Minister
Keith Brown.
The Scottish Government hold regular discussions with various stakeholders to discuss transport links improvements such as the A737 Dalry bypass, the M8, M73, M74 motorway improvements, the A82 Pulpit Rock and indeed high-speed rail.
Margaret McDougall.
I thank the Minister for that answer. I'm sure the Minister is aware of the potential Glasgow Cross-Rail project, one which, while always suggested, has never been started. The project would link over 220 stations across Scotland and in particular would connect the high unemployment area of North Ayrshire and its islands to Greater Glasgow, Edinburgh and everywhere in between and beyond by a direct rail link. To establish a basic cross-rail route, all it would take would be the electrification of an already existing 1.8 miles of track across the centre of Glasgow, opening up huge employment economic opportunities across the country. The question is, when will the Scottish Government give serious consideration to the Crossrail project and add it to the infrastructure programme?
Thanks. Minister.
I suppose the answer to the question, at least for the member, would be to identify which other things we should stop doing in order to fund that. And I mention that because I had understood the member to be very pleased with the things which the Scottish Government is doing. She is quoted as saying that some improvements we've made to rail services just now in North Ayrshire, these further improvements are great for the area, increase the number of trains on the airline, extend the car park and co-winning. It's something I've lobbied with for many years as a North Ayrshire councillor. So I'm very pleased that this administration has managed to deliver on some of the things which previous administrations have not done, but we can't do everything at the same time. We have to prioritise, and I'm delighted that she's as pleased with the action that we're taking in relation to her area as I am.
Excellent. Brief supplementary, Kenny Gibson.
Minister, as you know, it's a tiresome Labour tactic to scaremonger, and last year, approaching the council elections, they did so about train closures. Margaret McDougall laid down motion 1765, which expressed concern that Ardrossan Town Station is under threat. Can you confirm that neither Ardrossan Town Station or any other of my constituency is or has been under threat of closure from this Scottish Government at any time? And do you agree that Margaret McDougall should apologise to rail users in Ardrossan for worrying them unnecessarily about a closure that was never even proposed, let alone planned?
Not only have we not had any intention to close that rail station, but as Mr Gibson knows, we've bolstered it by the introduction of the new ferry service which goes to Campbelltown, specifically because it comes at a railhead. So we have reinforced the viability of that station, far from even considering the question of closure.
Thank you. Question 5, Iain Gray.
To ask the Scottish Government what further support it will provide to help the regeneration of small to medium-sized town centres.
Cabinet Secretary Nicola Sturgeon.
We're due to receive the report of the External Advisory Group taking forward the National Review of Town Centres in July, and our future approach will be determined by the findings of this group.
Thank you. Iain Gray.
Well, I look forward to reading the report, but the Cabinet Secretary should understand that those working towards the regeneration of the largest town in my constituency, Haddington, will feel that it rings very hollow given her government's decision to close that town's courts, removing £360,000 from the economy and leaving 2 large properties vacant in the heart of the town. What actual resources will the Cabinet Secretary commit to Haddington to mitigate this act of town centre vandalism by our Cabinet colleague?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, can I thank Iain Gray for that question? I'm not going to revisit the debate about courts today. Those decisions were given full and very robust scrutiny by this Parliament in the normal course of our procedures. But this Government's commitment to town centre regeneration and to the health of our town centres is absolutely clear. There are 66 projects around the country that have benefited from the £60 million Town Centre Regeneration Fund, resources that were never made available by previous administrations, of which Iain Gray and his colleagues were part. We've also made a commitment in this financial year to a £2 million Town Centre Housing Fund to help bring empty properties back into use, and that fund will be open for bids this summer. And as I said in my initial answer, we're awaiting the recommendations of the Town Centre review, and we'll take forward those recommendations in a very clear and ambitious action plan. So this government's commitment to town centres is very clear, it's very strong, and I look forward to the recommendations of the Town Centre review being implemented and achieving the support of people right across this Parliament.
Thank you. Question 6, Helen Eadie.
Ask the Scottish Government how much it will cost to repair the defects in roads in Fife.
Mr Keith Brown.
Fife Council are responsible for the management and maintenance of local roads in Fife. Scottish Ministers, for our part, are responsible for Scotland's trunk road network, and we are investing over £690 million in 2013-14 to ensure our strategic routes facilitate the effective movement of people, goods and services between our major towns and cities, helping to deliver sustainable economic growth.
Minister for his answer. And Minister, I would ask you to investigate the situation concerning insurance companies across Scotland who cover the road defects, particularly in potholes. Insurance companies like Gallagher and Bassett, who continually refuse to honour the claims of constituents of many of us across Scotland for our constituents. I had to go to court recently, the Sheriff Court, with my constituents. The constituent won their case, but it ended up costing both the council and the insurance company double the money that it would have had to pay had it paid out originally. This is poor use of taxpayers' money to have to go to court.
Question, please.
So I'd be glad if you would review that situation, Minister.
Thank you. Minister.
I think the reviewing of the actions of insurance companies is well outside my remit. I understand it's a genuine issue, but it would also be for local authorities who are taking forward on the receiving end of these claims to take that forward as well. Obviously, look into it as far as it affects the trunk road network. But just to go back to the original point about roads in Fife, if I could say that as well as the investment which I mentioned, we do have the intelligent transport system, which has been introduced as part of the Forth Bridge project, and the park and ride in her constituency as well, which I think helps. And of course, we have the new Queensferry crossing coming in 2016, so substantial investment in Fife.
Thank you. Question 7, Annette Milne. Put your card in, please, Ms Milne. Thank you. Carry on.
To ask the Scottish Government how it helps communities that want to achieve blue flag status for their beaches or marinas.
Sir Paul Wheelhouse.
The Scottish Government works with Keep Scotland Beautiful, which runs the Blue Flag scheme in Scotland. Keep Scotland Beautiful supports local authorities in putting forward resorts for a Blue Flag. It has also made seaside awards for 15 resorts and 44 rural beaches, many of which could not have all the facilities required for Blue Flag status. Together with SEPA, Scottish Water and local authorities, we are taking action to protect bathing water quality. Excellent water quality is an essential condition for the award of a Blue Flag, and in 2012 a total of 32 designated bathing waters in Scotland achieved the required excellent standard.
Annette Milne.
I thank the Minister for his answer. Since 2007, Scotland has lost a number of blue flag status designated beaches, including Montrose Beach and Broughty Ferry Beach in my region. Does he agree that it's vital that we send out a clear message that all these beaches still have some of the highest quality water in Scotland and are first-class sites for local people and visitors to enjoy? And will he liaise with RSPB, SNH and other environmental organisations to help councils pursuing the achievement or restoration of blue flag status to promote their coastlines as tourist attractions?
Thank you. Minister.
I certainly recognise the points that Annette Milne raises. She's certainly right. There are many good quality beaches in Scotland. As I say, 32 beaches met the excellent water quality standard. Not so many go forward for blue flag status because there are essential facilities they have to have in place in order to be able to put themselves forward for that. But I'm happy to take forward the points you mentioned and to meet with those agencies and NGOs who are willing to look at the issue.
Thank you. Question 8, Stuart Stevenson.
To ask how the distribution of funds from the Homely Energy Efficiency Programmes for Scotland is calculated.
Sir Margaret Burgess, briefly, please.
The Scottish Government's budget for fuel poverty and energy efficiency in 2013-14 is £79 million. The majority, £60 million of this, has been spent on council-led area-based schemes to tackle fuel poverty. Following agreement with COSLA, half of the £60 million was distributed among all 32 councils based on their levels of fuel poverty and the energy efficiency of their stock. The remaining £30 million was set aside for more ambitious projects by councils. The remaining £19 million will be used to deliver our national affordable warmth and energy assistance schemes and provide further funding to the Energy Savings Trust and others to help the Home Energy Scotland hotline and advice centres to provide advice and guidance to people about the energy efficiency of their homes and what support they may be eligible for.
Stuart Stevenson, briefly, please.
Does the Minister agree that in rural areas where many houses are reliant on heating oil, this funding is particularly important in supporting energy efficiency?
Minister.
Yes, I would agree with that. And Aberdeenshire got £4.4 million of the HEAPS money, and it's very clear it's a national scheme throughout Scotland, delivered locally, where local authorities can determine what's required in their area. And in Aberdeenshire, their projects take account of the rurality of the area, and that was the intention of the scheme.
Thank you very much.